Wow. Wow. Thank you, JT. Thank you all for coming. It's really an honor for Citizens United to be up here, teaming up with Americans for Prosperity Foundation to bring the inaugural Freedom Summit here to the Granite State. Americans for Prosperity, I don't think I need to tell you, you all know, but is one of the premier organizations in the conservative movement, and their ability to organize grassroots activists for pro-growth policies is really second to none in the country. I'm proud to be able to co-host this event with AFP, but I want to thank, just like Corey had an opportunity to, some of the folks that made this possible. First of all, Tim Phillips, who's the president of AFP, who couldn't be here. I want to thank Tim and Corey Lewandowski, Greg Moore, Joy Lutz, the folks at AFP, their entire staff. I mean, they really put their hearts and souls into this event. And then, of course, my staff at Citizens United, from Jeff Marshner, JT, who was just up here, Madison, and many of the other staff that put this thing together. I would ask all of you to give them a round of applause, because that's why you're here today. Well, this is this is sort of a homecoming for me and my family. I was born in East Boston, actually, so not from New Hampshire, but sorry. But I spent I did spend a lot of my youth up here, and more importantly, my dad is from the White Mountains, and I always have loved visiting North Woodstock, his hometown, and so I have fond memories of throwing apples to the bears at Clark's Trading Post, and swimming in that really cold water at the Lost River, and looking up to the old man in the mountain. I have plenty of family who still lives up here today. Some of them are here today, and I'm very glad that you guys could make it. And I even had an uncle, my dad's brother, my Uncle Bob, served in the state Senate here in New Hampshire, unfortunately as a Democrat. And actually, my wife is busy with our two daughters today in Maryland, but I have two of my other kids, Lily and Griffin, here today, and I just wanted to thank them for coming up, and of course my mom and my dad are here as well, so I just wanted to thank them all for coming. It is really, it's a privilege to be able to do this type of thing. And so with that background, I know firsthand that New Hampshire is a state that takes its politics very seriously. Every 4 years, Democrats and Republicans come to New Hampshire to gauge their support, to gauge the people of New Hampshire on the important issues that you are concerned about. You take it seriously by being engaged on public policy, and more importantly, asking the candidates the tough questions as they cross from the North Country to the seacoast. It's because you take this process to heart that there is no other place in my mind that should be the first in the nation primary. Every 4 years, people ask, why New Hampshire? And I always ask, why not New Hampshire? The Live Free or Die state symbolizes what is good about America. A state where there's no income or sales taxes, and small businesses are allowed to grow in an environment where jobs can be created. It's a state where personal responsibility and individual liberties are not frowned upon. A state that truly embodies what it means to be free. My organization, Citizens United, is dedicated to restoring our government to citizens' control, and that's why it was an easy call to have the first Freedom Summit here in New Hampshire. And for those of you who are not familiar with Citizens United, we have over 500,000 members spread out in all 50 states. We're a constitutional conservatives who fight for our founding principles on a daily basis. We stand for what has become known as the three legs of the Reagan coalition: pro-economic policies, strong military policies that practice Reagan's peace through strength, and traditional family values that promote the culture of life. Now, Citizens United just had the privilege and the honor of celebrating its 25th anniversary fighting on the front lines of the conservative movement this year. And for the past decade, through our documentaries, through our books, policy work, and grassroots advocacy, we've become actively engaged in the culture war that's been going on in America. And as JT said, we've now produced 23 full-length feature films that advance conservatism through a medium that liberals have long dominated. We refuse to cede that ground to the left. Now, Citizens United also has a robust PAC where we support true conservatives who are interested in making tough votes that will change the broken ways of Washington and start to fix America. I'm proud to say that we were early supporters of Rand Paul and Ted Cruz. We never shy away from a fight in a primary. We must elect conservative, principled conservatives in primaries so that when they go on to win the general election, we know who they are. There are too many politicians in Washington who are simply there to manage the decay. We need more leaders who understand there needs to be a sense of urgency in tackling our enormous problems. Senator Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, and Mike Lee, all of whom you're going to hear from today, are among those change agents who understand that kicking the can down the road again cannot be done. It is our filmmaking, however, that has paved the way for our landmark Supreme Court victory that really restored our First Amendment rights as we know them. And it was a case called Citizens United versus the Federal Election Commission. I'm going to talk about that for just a second because it's a case that drives Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid, and Barack Obama crazy. And I do wear it as a badge of honor. Many people jump to conclusions because they don't necessarily understand what the case was about and the details, thanks to really the anti-free speech rhetoric of the left-wing policymakers in Washington, as well as the mainstream media who wants to make it all about corporations buying our American political process, which is exactly what this was not about. You see, we brought our case to the Supreme Court because the Federal Election Commission told us that it was a criminal violation to make a film on Hillary Clinton, then a candidate for president, and run our advertisements. And I read the First Amendment. I have read the First Amendment, and it says, Congress shall make no law. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. No law. Whether you like what's being said in America or not, whether you agree with the speech or not, that's what makes America different than every other country. And that's what this case was about. That's what Citizens United versus the Federal Election Commission was about. The genesis of our case was that I recognized the brilliance of Michael Moore. Everybody, I hope, remembers Fahrenheit 9/11, his unbelievably successful film from a box office standpoint, very, very successful film. I saw the impact that that documentary had and its TV advertising had on attacking George Bush. And I sat back and I said, well, if he could do it, why can't we do it? Conservatives don't enter the culture war that way. So I decided to take that on. So I saw the enormous, enormous impact that his commercials for his movie had. So fast forward to 2007, and Citizens United produced Hillary the movie because I, like everyone else, knew that Hillary Clinton was going to be the nominee that year. And so I invested a lot of money to produce a film. And of course, really no one saw it except for 9 people who wear black robes, which was kind of enjoyable. That was a little entertaining for me, I'll be honest with you. To think that Justice Ginsburg had to sit there and watch that film was kind of fun, actually. So I was gearing up to run our TV commercials, and that's when the Federal Election Commission came in and said Hillary the movie would be a criminal violation. Now, criminal violation is because McCain-Feingold criminalized political speech, criminalized it. And they said you will potentially be found guilty with 5 years in prison per count for making a movie and showing ads in America. So I'm not the kind of guy who shies away from a fight, and I'm not a kind of guy who waits for the fight to come to me. So I decided to sue the Federal Election Commission first because I wasn't going to wait around. So I had this fundamental belief that if Michael Moore could do it, we should be able to do it. And I wasn't going to take no for an answer. So we went to the Supreme Court. We went all the way to the Supreme Court, obviously, had to fight through the lower courts. And when we got to the Supreme Court, Justice Alito asked during the oral arguments to the Deputy Solicitor General of the United States, the government's lawyer, that if he asked a question basically like this: if the logical extension of McCain-Feingold says that if the government can ban films, can the government ban books? And the government lawyer answered with one word: yes. And I got to tell you, I think that was when I knew we were on the path to victory, because banning books in America, again, a fundamental principle that we're not going to stand for. So we waited for the court's decision. And on the last day of the session, we actually were remanded for a new set of arguments. Instead of getting a decision, we were told we had to do the whole thing all over again. It was really unbelievable. And they actually came back and said, you really didn't ask the right questions, in essence. And so we had our case, but they said, hey, you need to we want the answers to these questions. Come back and do that. So we had to come back and ask and answer broader questions, including if corporations, both for-profit and non-profit, both large and small corporations, mom and pop, grocery store to IBM, were to be able to fully participate in the election process. So during the hearing, the next time, the Solicitor General of the United States argued, not the deputy, and her name was Elena Kagan. And Elena Kagan had to argue this case against us, which was kind of fun. And she tried to walk back the assertion that the government could ban books. And she said on direct questions, yes, there is a statute on the legal books where we could do this, but trust us, we've never enforced it. To which I thought the Chief Justice was going to come across the dais, because he famously said, as he leaned forward into his microphone, we don't put our First Amendment rights in the hands of FEC bureaucrats. And I knew when he did that, we were well on our way, because I felt that Justice Roberts was actually our fifth vote. And so with that, we ended up winning our case 5-4. Now, it still scares me that there are 4 members of the Supreme Court that feel like you can ban books. I don't know where you are, but that bothers me. So a nonprofit, relatively small nonprofit in America, from America's viewpoint, Citizens United, took on the United States government, the entirety of the United States government, and won. And that is what drives Barack Obama crazy, because the community organizer really doesn't want people to be able to organize and take on power. He wants to be able to have power over people, which is what Obamacare is all about, which is why Corey talking about the Secretary of Health and Human Services resigning is such a blessing for us. However, no new Secretary of Health and Human Services is going to be able to fix a broken Obamacare, because it is fundamentally flawed and needs to be repealed and replaced. So I'm going to be able to visit with you a little bit later in the program, but I wanted to share that story with you because I thought it was important to introduce ourselves to you for the first time in the right way. So after a devastating loss in 2012 and having Barack Obama win, it is important to remember that that was just one battle in a long war. That we need to discuss policies that are going to help restore and preserve America's founding principles, such as limited government and individual liberty. I'm proud that my organization was able to participate in this event today, and I want to thank each of you for coming, taking time out of your lives on really a beautiful New Hampshire day. I know you don't want to be inside, but today is going to be an unbelievable day. We have a lineup of speakers that is really a very rare thing anywhere. And so for it to come to the Granite State, I'm so happy that each of you are here to participate. And with that, I thank all of you for coming today. I appreciate it.